Hello, and welcome to episode 23 of Careers Unplugged, where we uncover the real stories behind professional life. I'm joined by Alex to discuss her industrial placement at Rolls-Royce Motor Cars. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Now it's the new year, now it's 2026. What resolutions have you made so far?
I've got a few actually. So I have a few careers resolutions. I've got fitness ones, and I've also got kind of personal goals as well. So career-wise, I'm aiming to get a first overall in my degree. So wish me luck on that.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. At the same time, I've given myself like a low New Year's resolution of I read at least 10 books this year. Mainly just because I'm quite bad at reading, so I want to get more into it. And then I've been running for about 6 months now, so I recently completed my first half marathon. So by the end of the year, I hope to be in a state where I could do a full marathon. So yeah, those are my main ones.
What 10 books are you going to read out of interest?
So it's more like, I don't know what one specifically I'm going to go into. At the minute, I'm reading Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, so that is my main thing. I would like to read The Bell Jar, and it's like a cafe fantasy book that's supposed to be quite chill, and that's been on my reading list for years. So I've got kind of like 3, but the rest, who knows? Just wherever I get taken, to be honest. So yeah.
What's your favourite kind of book to read?
Oh, that's really hard. I have like a few different ones, but for me, I don't know why. I really, really, really like anything fantasy, but not just kind of like your standard like elves and stuff. I just really like, it's kind of like survival books. So I really liked reading The Road, and that was like an apocalypse style book, which was like really, really, really interesting to me. So I also want to read World War Z, the like document style type book, which is something I'd be really interested in. But yeah, all fiction, to be honest. I'm not much of a non-fiction reader. Unfortunately, I do respect people who do read non-fiction. I just can't do it. I don't know why.
No, like I used to really like autobiographies.
Yeah?
You know, like I have obviously like I'm very much into business, so I have Lord Sugar's 2015 autobiography, and it generally got me through my GCSEs.
Really? I respect you deeply for that. I wish that I could do that. I just don't have the like attention span if it's not something like absolutely mind-blowing is going on. I think it's quite poor. But
I despise books where it's difficult to read it. You know, like it's written in such a sophisticated way that it's so hard to like maintain attention.
Yeah, it's one of the things where it's like I have been put off reading kind of the classics. So I really like Pride and Prejudice, and I would love to read it as a book, but I just know I will struggle a lot. I really struggle with Cormac McCarthy's writing, mainly because he has really, really, really intense descriptions. And I think once you get it and you kind of understand it, you're like, oh, this is just like so cool. I love how he's described everything. But it does involve a lot of me kind of Googling what he means by it, which is unfortunate, but yeah.
Like I'm more of a movie person.
Each their own. Yeah, I love movies. I'm going to go see 28 Years Later this evening, The Bone Temple. I haven't watched it yet, no spoilers, please.
I've got an unpopular opinion. I think 28 Weeks Later is superior than 28 Days Later.
Oh, that is like...
Also because it was saying Canary Wolf as well. I was like, a bit biased there.
Yeah, I was just thinking like, oh, that is like probably the most controversial opinion that you could have.
The best like 10 minutes of like horror cinema I think you'd ever watch.
Yeah, so I'm uncontroversial. I really do like the first one. And I was watching watching an analysis on the series of like kind of how each film like serves a warning of like human behavior and stuff.
I mean, when I was in like the cinema watching like the first 28 Years Later, I just never expected like a Jimmy Savile cult to be in the film.
Me neither. That was, yeah.
Like when my dad, when he saw that haircut, he was like,
It's just war flashbacks.
What? Like, what's going on? Okay, so let's get back into the questions. So, obviously you worked at Rolls-Royce Motor Cars in production management.
Yes.
So, what's something you included in your application that most students wouldn't think to include?
So I'll just kind of get into a bit of the backstory of this. So I didn't apply for Rolls-Royce Motor Cars. I applied for a production management role at the Oxford mini plant, mainly just because I would have applied for the internship. I actually just wasn't aware that it was something that was available for me. It wasn't on GradCracker, and that's kind of mainly where I did all of my all of my applications are from GradCracker. And I actually never, unfortunately, like everyone else here, probably didn't hear anything back. And then one day I did get a call from Rolls-Royce Motor Cars. My CV had been floated over because they're both owned by BMW. So my application for production management, what I did to try and like get ahead, because I know applying for placements and internships, they are so competitive. So for me, obviously I was trying to learn about production management and kind of how that works, but at the same time, fortunately, the Oxford mini plant had a lot of information on the specific kind of like lean manufacturing techniques that they use. So I found like essentially online, like not internal PowerPoints, but essentially PowerPoints created by the Oxford mini plant on specifically techniques about production management. So I learned all of these, and I eventually, then further on, when I got a call from Rolls-Royce Motor Cars, I set up an interview with them, and I kind of implemented, obviously, my research of production management, but also essentially my knowledge of the internal company itself, specifically for production management, which I think gave me a leg up, because sometimes I think it's really important to try and find specifics, because every single production management role is going to be different depending on company. Like even with like Oxford Mini is much more automated. They have like these KUKA robots that pick up the car chassis between the lines, which is just insane. Rolls-Royce kind of focuses more on craft. It's like bespoke, it's luxury. So there's just not as high a throughput of vehicles. And in that case, that means that the manufacturing techniques change. So you've got to be specifically aware of how that kind of works.
Mm-hmm.
So I think looking into these kind of like company-specific documents can be really useful if you can find them online. Obviously, I'm aware it is different for every single company.
So would you agree no 2 days are the same?
Yes, absolutely. Genuinely, from my first day to my last day, I learned a new thing every single day about production. There's so much to know about production. It just, you cannot. My description of production, so it's 2 shifts, one in the morning and one in the afternoon to evening. And that totals about 140 to 140 total people. And this process runs from polishing to lacquering to assembly, and it's a massive system, and there's a lot to know about it when it comes to not just production quality and who you're working with and the processes, the issues behind the processes, the machinery you're using, but also the auditing. So you have to know about environmental legislation, and you do get audited on it. You need to look and ensure that COSH is up to date because we use hydrogen peroxide and things like that. There's so much to know about production. I remember being maybe my 3rd month in, and I thought like, right, I finally gotten the hang of it. And then it just so happens to be that there's a maintenance, or like it's like every 3 to 6 months we need to have maintenance on the breathing airlines, and I have absolutely no idea. And it's just one of the things I needed to know because I'm the one who sets them up and things like that. So fortunately, there's a lot of support, but yeah, to this day, genuinely, I do not know the whole vast amount of information that goes on in that department. It's just absolutely massive.
I can completely contend with that because our viewers know that I used to work at Sustainable Fitch, and literally we had an orientation week simply catered towards learning about climate change. Right. And there's so much that actually went into that week. I felt like my brain was going to explode.
Yeah, I had it when I first started. I was enrolled onto a course to be taught manufacturing techniques. and kind of understanding how you avoid production bottlenecks so you don't end up with a ton of parts at one stage, and you split it up into pieces, and then you have all these different, so we basically, the entire thing was assembling a light bulb from start to finish, and we had to create our own production lines and figure out, and it was kind of like a challenge. And for an entire day, all I did was figure out how to most efficiently assemble a light bulb with these given tools. And it was, sorry, not a light bulb, but like the plug for a light bulb. But yeah, it was a long day. It was a long day. And yeah, that was just like one portion of it. There was then also like a lot of information on quality and the machinery used and just general information about Rolls-Royce as well. So yeah.
So would you say there was a steep learning curve?
Absolutely, yes. I think the way it was described to me when I first started is you have to, and I'm sure everyone hears this, but hit the ground running. So
I use that phrase quite often. Yes.
I think for everyone, it is the case, especially when you're starting a new job, especially as an intern, because I do believe that these kind of internships are just, for me, it was a year, so it was a year-long job interview. Yeah, I think I was aware of that at the start. So with my job, if I didn't do it correctly, production would have stopped, which is a lot of pressure to be under when you're just like the intern. But it was like, I think it seriously improved my organizational skills and my communication, because if I'm being honest, I think the main challenge of the job isn't keeping production running. It's keeping on top of like communication and transparency. So at all times, you need to be informing people of how everything is going on in your job. Because at the end of the day, you are going to make mistakes. There will be things missed. And it's just, unfortunately, how production works, especially when you're starting. And yeah, the main thing that you need to be aware of is you need to be as transparent as possible and communicate as effectively as possible so that everybody understands what's going on. I didn't have any proxies or anything, so if I went on holiday, I had to seriously make sure that everything was in line for my absence and things like that, which I think is standard for most jobs. But, you know, the concept of just halting I do mean just the entire production line. Not just the department. It was definitely a stressor at the start.
So can I ask, like, say after you went on annual leave, were there kind of feelings of like nervousness coming back to the job, knowing how much you would need to catch up on?
Sometimes. I think I did have a very supportive department though, so I don't think I ever stressed too much. I think it also was situational. So I think if I knew like I'd ordered something that had a really long lead time and it was looking like it was going to be quite tight, when I'd come back, that is maybe would have been my stressor. But aside from that, not really, no, because again, my department was very supportive. If I needed help, it would be there. Again, my boss was very understanding of how production works. I mean, he'd been working there like 20 years. He'd had 10 interns.
Did you guys have like regular coffee chats?
Yes. So we had, for me, I would recommend this if you actually do end up going on placement or an internship, is having depending on how long it is, for me, I had like a bi-monthly chat with my boss about my performance. And that was something I set up to basically ensure that what I was doing was good for the department and he was kind of happy with my progress. But also when it comes to kind of like progress checks on work, there was a meeting every single day at 10 that I ran, which was called Shell 2. And that's essentially where you run through a series of production projects that are going on. It could be upgrading milling machines, or it could be getting a new area set out to store parts in. It could literally be anything. It could even just be potentially, like, I think at one point I helped like install these like beautiful like framed pictures of the cars around, and all those different projects I would run 10 a.m. and do progress checks. So that was also a way for me to kind of understand what other people are doing and also give updates on my work. So I would have my own projects, but a lot of these tended to be about like ordering long lead time items for production and things like that.
I mean, you've spoken about like how important communication is as well. And I can, see for myself that you are a very good communicator. So how important do you think storytelling is when talking about your experiences?
I think it's almost paramount. So for me, if you are almost giving a rendition of your experiences, be it for here or for an internship or a job, grad role, anything like that, I think having a set story comes off much more professional. But I think it also kind of tells to your organization of yourself, kind of if your assessment of where you're at, it shows like kind of where you want to be going, that you're on the path towards that. So you've got kind of like all these different traits being shown. So self-motivation, organization, it shows you're a good communicator. Overall, it also comes off very genuine, I believe, just having this kind of like set out story of where you were, what you've done, how you've gotten there, where you want to be next is really, really, really important for a job interview. So I recently had a grad role interview, and I made my own story of like how I started university, went into mechanical engineering. From there, I spoke about my internship, and then just kind of got onto how I even found this grad role that I'd interviewed for. And I'm currently waiting back, so fingers crossed on that. We'll see, but yeah.
Yeah, because I often like to refer back to the STAR technique, you know, like a narrative you want to sell for yourself. It's all about manufacturing that personal brand, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I had a course recently on personal branding.
Yeah, because we all know that the job market is increasingly competitive. You know, you have to ask yourself, what do you bring to the table? What is your competitive advantage? Why should an employer pick you out of everybody else?
Yeah. I actually can't explain how many times I think I have like reiterated that question for all the like grad roles I'm going for at the minute. So it is really important. I think every single employer is asking that. So at the minute, my kind of like standout is my almost, or at least this is what I'm trying to go through, is my kind of broad knowledge of engineering. So I'm a mechanical engineer, but I have quite a fair amount of experience in mechatronics. So I don't just know the mechanical side. So over other mechanical engineers, because I have that knowledge of electronics, hopefully that can give me a leg up into kind of having more like holistic view of engineering. But yeah, totally open to seeing how that goes.
Okay, so what's one thing applicants consistently underestimate about working in production, in your personal view?
So I have a few different answers for this, but my first one actually comes from, I was quite nosy, and I was kind of, when I was at Rolls-Royce Motor Cars, I'm asking my boss kind of, how was my interview? What did you think of it? And, you know, how were the other interviews? Obviously, you don't say names, but, you know, why did you pick me over other people? And he mentioned, essentially, it was my like realistic understanding of how manufacture and production works. So I was asked, I distinctly remember the question. It was, what do you think an average day as a production management intern is like at Rolls-Royce Motor Cars? And I believe my answer was something like, you start early, you communicate, you work in a team, you've got to make sure that all the different variables of production are kind of kept together and understood so that you don't have any miscommunication or like break in production. And I remember him saying that other applicants failed that question because they didn't understand how interconnected production is. So you do start early, and that wasn't something that they were aware of, which is why they unfortunately weren't successful. Another thing I'd say about like manufacture for me is, so I like to think of my like old role as a production management intern was a year-long project, and that was just to keep production running and keep quality high. But at the same time, I think it's really easy to get complacent in that. And if all you're doing is keeping production running, eventually you do get quite good at it, and you do end up with free time. And that is where it can be overlooked that you can actively help improve production. So for me, I became an experimentation manager, where I took obviously my free time to help create novel concepts with teams of like 4 to 5 every 3 months or so. But I worked to create these production issue reporting systems straight from the assembly line. Essentially, these were big screens in production that had these systems where you could instantly report specific problems with production. These would be like auto-saved. sent to the relevant specialists. And yeah, it was just a really good way to keep tracking of like non-conforming parts or broken machinery, or I even managed to do it for like ESD, which is it's like electrostatic discharge. So because we were working with electric parts, if you didn't have the right PPE on, you could actually short these parts, and it wouldn't hurt anyone, but it would break the part. So there is like documentation around that, which I was able to digitalize, and they're still being used today. So I'm still in contact with my old colleagues, and it's really exciting to see that everything's still running, which is really nice considering I haven't been there for 2.5 years. So yeah,
We kind of talked about this in Costa, but what is the difference between Rolls-Royce, the company, and Rolls-Royce Motor Cars?
so they are just like completely different companies.
Mm-hmm.
Rolls-Royce Motor Cars is a company under BMW, and they are a luxury brand. They develop bespoke, or at least very, very, very bespoke vehicles, and they're all about craft, luxury. It's made by human hands, so there's very, very little automation, if at all, especially not in my department. So one of the really interesting things about Rolls-Royce Motor Cars is the bespoke teams, which I used to work with, and they just create these absolutely gorgeous pieces of art. So on the picnic tables and stuff in the cars, you can have like just beautifully hand-painted pieces that are made just for one customer. And yes, stuff like that. Rolls-Royce, which is the jet engines and stuff, they're completely separate companies. Even when I joined, that was weirdly something that I had no idea about. I assumed they were always just branches, which I could have been caught out on the interview, I think. Fortunately, it wasn't the case. But yeah, it is a really, really like unknown fact.
So obviously we've mentioned that you do mechanical engineering at university. How did, say, the engineering department prepare you for this role, and where did it fall short?
So the engineering department does really, really good thing with their teaching, which is that we are taught a lot of soft skills, specifically on problem solving and critical thinking. So I think the course is designed to kind of train students to adapt really quickly to new situations and like new challenges. And I think that's standard for engineering. Like technology is always developing, there are always new problems. So in that case, I would say I never actually really applied any of the engineering I had been taught, for example, like CFD or FEA, or yeah, there wasn't really much of that used at all. But a lot of the soft skills I developed were in fact used. So my communication, organization, again, like my work ethic. Engineering is quite a hard degree, so I think I came in there and I was just like ready to run around anywhere. If anyone needed help, I was just like there instantly. So yeah.
So what's the culture like?
My building was actually a detached portion of the entire site. So most of the site, so like 80% of the site, is in this one big building. And then the lacquering department specifically is across a road. And there we are. So for me, at first, I did feel a little bit isolated because, again, the rest of my department was in the main building. So all of the other interns in my department were all in the same office. You know, they were like on different timelines to me as well because they just weren't working in production management specifically. So there was that issue right at the start. But as I kind of got more involved with my department, I was working more, I was communicating, I actually found out this job was like basically perfect for me because I just got along with my in my specific department so well. Like I used to go for work dinners with all of my like office, and it was just really nice, and it just basically felt like an enclosed team, and I did feel like part of it. Like by the end of it, it was just like I knew everyone, first name, last name, all 140 of them, and we were all friendly. And like by the end of it, yeah, I had a lovely work do. And yeah, it was just really nice. Like Rolls-Royce, I think, if you're willing, especially in my department, if you're willing to put in the work ethic and you give to the department, it gives back. So I ended up like with some really, really, really good, like I've got a very good network now, I'd say. And I'm still in contact with the people in my office, and I just kind of see what they're up to every once in a while, pop them a little email, see how they're doing. And yeah, it's just really nice.
Oh, I love how like you're still connecting with like your previous colleagues as well. You guys must have been really close then.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to be, especially like with production. My office was like maybe like 1.5 times this room. It was quite small actually, but you have to communicate with people so often. Eventually, it's just
It's just part of the job.
it's part of the job. But also, again, they're really lovely people. I think I really would have struggled if I had any kind of like issues. I never did. I never had any issues. They were all really lovely.
That's really lovely. Now, I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, so you briefly mentioned this in your previous answer, but what does interior surface centre do, and why is lacquering such a critical part of the vehicle?
So the interior surface centre, we work on the solid portions of the interior of the vehicle. It actually used to be called wood shop, and that's mainly because all the interior surfaces used to be made of wood. They still are, but now we have these carbon fibre plates as well. So we manufacture the picnic tables on the back of the seats, the dashboard, centre console, and even, I really like to say this one, but champagne chest was another thing.
Oh, that's right on my alley.
Yeah, I remember telling people, oh yeah, we've got the champagne chest, and they're like, what do you mean? And yeah, it is as it says, you pull it, it's obviously in the back of the car, and these are designed to be driven by normally like a driver, and then the client's normally in the back and they can have a drink. It's very, very, very luxurious. I've seen the glassware that comes with it. Oh, goodness me. It is very nice. So it starts out with veneering, which is you have a humidor, which humidors normally what you put cigars in to condition them, to keep them ready to smoke, essentially. But for us, it was to keep the veneers in at a certain humidity and temperature.
Mhm.
They're kept in there, conditioned to keep them, the like wood fibres, essentially moisturised. And then those go onto a carrier, and then they're hot pressed to fit onto a carrier. There are quality assurance checks. They are sanded down to make sure that the surface is smooth. And then it comes to my department. There is a lot more to this process than I'm saying, by the way. It is very rigorous, but I'm just kind of giving a lowdown here. Comes to my department, where it's then checked again, goes up to lacquering, where it's sprayed. And lacquering is really, really, really important because it seals the wood fibres. There are two types. You can have open pore or you can have high gloss. Open pore is essentially a matte finish that basically gives the wood like a smooth finish, but it's a matte, essentially. But high gloss is a thicker layer of lacquer that leaves it with this very, very shiny surface. It's really nice, actually. High gloss was my favourite. And essentially, yeah, it went into lacquering. Again, lacquering is really important for other reasons. It protects the wood from damage over the years, so it's a lot stronger. And lacquer is like tough. So it gets cured for about 72 hours, which means we always have to be about 3 days ahead of production of the main assembly line, which can be stressful at points in time, especially, we're only 2 days ahead, so we've got to run, we've got to get all these parts in. After that, it then gets taken down to polishing and sanding, so to get the high gloss, it goes to milling first, in which it has like the edges of the lacquer shaved off, essentially, because it's drippy and it gets almost like bunched around the sides. Then it goes into sanding and polishing, basically just make it look buffed and just like nice and flat profile. And then it goes to assembly, where it's assembled into the electric parts. And then it goes back over to the assembly line.
Is your job mostly about experimentation as well? Is it like a trial and error type process?
So my job as experimentation manager was basically the engineering interns in my department were able to lead teams to create novel concepts to have inside the cars, or to sell as something outside of the cars. It was a little bit of experimentation, but I would say it was experimentation to bring a concept to internal stakeholders. This would be engineering and marketing. And it was really interesting. There's a lot of things that I saw, but I can't actually say, unfortunately, what they're.
Client confidentiality is very important to Careers Unplugged, so we respect that.
But yeah, no, it was brilliant. You were normally given a theme of kind of what they wanted to see within the next 3 months, and you worked with. And people from all around the company. So it wasn't just engineers you were working with, especially when you're leading the groups. Anybody can volunteer for it. So I was working with embroiderers in the leather shop, working with spray painters in paint shop. I was working with engineers who their entire job was flying out to customers to literally show up at their like place of residence to check like damage to their cars and stuff and fix them. There was just like, yeah, multidisciplinary teams that we ran with, but it was definitely very rewarding of a process. I really liked doing it.
Can I ask, were there any travel opportunities at Rolls-Royce Motor Cars?
There were. I was so busy and kind of so like focused on my job that I think I kind of missed a few. So I did get to go to DMG Mori, which is a milling company, and I got to look at all their mills, and that was specifically for production to kind of see how we could improve, because the mills we had at the time, I think they were good, but I think there was a higher quality that had been released since, so we were kind of trying to see whether or not we needed to upgrade our mills. So I got to go over there to DMG Mori and have a look at, essentially it was like a milling machine convention. It was absolutely brilliant. Like as an engineer, I was looking at what was being made and I was just absolutely shocked at these like 6 degree of freedom machines with like basically automatic tooling, like 100 tools all on this roster, and you can basically just tell the machine like, I want this tool on this path, and it would just go. It was actually amazing. I will say, especially with like Rolls-Royce Motor Cars, I do know some of my friends actually flew to Germany. They literally flew to Germany to go to BMW to have talks and stuff, and I was actually quite jealous, although I wasn't jealous of like day-long meetings that they were doing there. But yeah, there's definitely the opportunity, absolutely. Oh, I also went to a few careers fairs. I went to one for Surrey University, which was really, really, really cool to kind of like be on the other side of the table for the first time in my life.
It must have felt very rewarding, like giving back, you know, like teaching your knowledge onto like others.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I came in with like a lot of misconceptions about kind of how engineering works as an industry, especially with like production management and stuff, because you need so much more that I think engineering can sometimes miss out on, especially with some soft skills and some like kind of knowledge of, again, how engineering works. Like there are so many more jobs in engineering that aren't just performing all of these different like analyses that you do for coursework and stuff. So I did kind of enjoy explaining the roles to these students at these careers fairs and kind of letting them understand more about the industry than I did when I was applying.
So am I right in saying that, say, like, if you wanted to apply to Rolls-Royce Motor Cars, you'd have to have a STEM degree? Or can anybody with any degree background apply?
So for my role specifically, it was actually Engineering Students Limited. Like, that's all you could. But every single year, I mean, when I was applying, there were 80 interns across the company. And I can say, like, for certain, you absolutely do not need to have a STEM degree. There were so many different departments to work in. And now they've got a site expansion going on. So they're getting interns in for site expansion. So if you've got like architecture and all these different types of degrees, marketing, business, they've got everything. They've got like data analysis style internships. Yeah, there's a lot going on. So you don't have to be in STEM to apply.
Yeah, because that's a common question that we often ask on this podcast, just because there are certain industries that are becoming more inclusive. And I think the outreach towards students is, you know, something they need to be aware of. You know, because as you say, there is often these misconceptions that these industries are trying to, you know, get away from.
Yeah, I mean, I found like, not from my experience, because as a STEM student, I do tend to apply for roles that are almost not STEM only, but very STEM centered. But from my experience of kind of seeing what my other friends are up to there in humanities, I've kind of learned that employers do value these STEM subjects, but it's also really important to kind of have these people skills and like have a different perspective. So, for example, cybersecurity was one that I was recently made aware of, and you do have to have this knowledge of programming and stuff, but at the same time having the people and communication skills to kind of understand how cybersecurity works, especially with like the onset of AI, is just like,
that's okay, that's what this podcast is for. Do you know what? Like, for some reason, I can't get champagne off my brain now. You know? So I do need to ask you, So how does the luxury automotive process differ from mass market automotive engineering, for example?
So I would say, again, there's like a massive emphasis on how you can make this product as bespoke and like detailed to your customer. So I think for like luxury brands, it's having something that no one else can ever get. I think that's kind of like how it was explained to me. So this is done through really like low level things like the Rolls-Royce vehicles have hand stitched stars into the top of the vehicle, and they're never the same. They will always be in a different way. In like some cases, we can get like the night sky on the day the client was born, or their like children's birthday, and then have again like what the night sky looked like on the top of this vehicle. So that's like a lower level thing. In higher levels, we have the picnic tables can be painted, the seats can be embroidered, especially, and then in some even bigger projects, we have coach builds, which are basically just completely bespoke vehicles, and they can take years to make. So from literally the entire chassis of the car can just be made exactly how the client wants it. It does take a while, but it is completely bespoke. And that differs a lot from your, say, more like automated car manufacturing. So, for example, we have no automation, no robotics. It does mean that our like throughput is a lot less. So I'd say we're in the tens of cars produced every single day. It's maybe like 30 or so. I can't remember the figure off the top of my head.
It's okay.
Some other car manufacturers are in the hundreds per day. So I think it's even higher. Yeah, we are kind of focusing on quality, not quantity for Rolls-Royce Motor Cars. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we only have time for one last question. And, you kind of touch upon like your future and what you want to do after you complete your integrated masters as well. But did this internship confirm or challenge what you thought you wanted to do?
I think my internship was kind of so broad in the amount of like opportunities I had that it definitely confirmed both. So for me, I really want to go kind of into more research and design compared to, say, a more day-to-day role like production management. I really did enjoy creating the production improvements and the experimentation management. I really, really, really did enjoy production management, but it did confirm that I do really enjoy much more kind of having these shorter projects so that I kind of have something fresh to work on every couple of months or so. So yeah, I still would love to work in production, but potentially more like a production specialist role, which is working on your like couple of months projects and stuff instead of your like day-to-day issues. So yeah.
And the great thing is now you've done like a full-blown industrial placement as well. You technically are a specialist in production management as well.
Yeah.
You have the right to call yourself that.
I do like when I say production specialist, that's an actual title, like it's an actual role. A production specialist. No, I do get what you mean though. You're more right in that respect. A production specialists were the people I used to communicate with in my daily meetings to be like, hey, how's this project coming along? What's up with it? Do you need any support on this end and stuff like that? But they were very interesting. It was, I was quite jealous.
Alex, thank you so much for coming in the studio today. It's been an absolute joy talking to you about your career journey.
It's been very interesting. So I've been like really enjoying this chat, so it's nice to like get it out.
Well, I'm glad that we could kind of be that outlet for you. Yep, and to everybody who is listening or watching, please stay tuned for more episodes where we'll provide valuable insights into the wonderful world of work, guiding you through internships and grad schemes. Okay, see you next time, guys. Bye-bye now.